I graduated from Foxcroft Academy and was very honored actually recently to be inducted into their Academic Hall of Fame, which was pretty exciting to go back. I'll say quickly, this is going to sound self-congratulatory, but I also ran track for Foxcroft Academy and was the worst hurdler on the team for 3 years. My senior year, I didn't lose a race and won a state championship and set my school record. It's a funny thing, when you run hurdles on the straightaway, you have to get your steps down in a certain pattern. And I was never very good at getting my steps down in the right pattern. And one day, a friend of mine said, who was sort of subbing as kind of an assistant coach, he said, why don't you switch your lead leg out of the blocks and see what that does? And that one little switch made all the difference. And all of a sudden, all my steps were right, and I was able to to run the race the way it should have been run all along. And nobody had picked up on that. Nobody had come to spent enough maybe attention with me, because I was so bad previously, to point that out. So I'm a big believer in that one touch making a huge difference. I think that, for me, maybe this is more universal than just about Maine, but I do think there's something about growing up in Maine. We don't, we are a little bit isolated from the rest of the country. We sometimes like that, sometimes don't. There's a kind of spirit, an almost sort of frontier spirit of self-reliance in Maine, I think, as well, that is pervasive. And so the paradox of that is sometimes you do need a little bit extra push. You need things to open your eyes a little bit to the world beyond. And it often doesn't take more than that one observation, that one little nudge to start a whole kind of chain reaction. And so I certainly brought that philosophy to the classroom. I think that small touches can make a big difference in that way. And I do share certainly a lot of the backgrounds of the students that are drawn to UMF in particular. I think in the University of Maine system, where they are maybe under the radar a little bit, but are looking to kind of break out of that. And I think we're in a great position to help them. But I like to think that we can put students after 4 years at UMF in as competitive a position as they would be if they went anywhere in the country. And I do think a lot of our students come here with the potential to do that. The core values and mission as a public liberal arts institution are key for me. What I knew about UMF when I was growing up in Maine is still the case, that if you are interested in becoming a teacher, there's no place that better prepares you than UMF. So, I start with those, but those are patently clear to a lot of people. I think for me, I could give a longer anecdote here, but I'm going to be sensitive to the camera. I really think, although there are a lot of institutions in our niche that promote faculty-student interactions and working together and a genuine kind of closeness and guidance. I've been at a few other places, I've never been at a place that lives that so authentically. And I have a story on it, but the way I talk when I'm speaking with candidates coming in for a new faculty position, and a lot of them are interested in UMF because they want that kind of experience themselves with students, it's a real thing. It's not a line. That's something that I've experienced myself firsthand here, that is different than certainly any other place that I've been. And I believe in that as the kind of core experience, I think, of faculty and staff and students here at UMF. We do a lot really well at UMF and have done since I've been here, which started in 2003 for me. So, I think the role of interim president is a curious one. I'm looking at a one-year horizon. For this year, I'm not, as president anyway, I think, dwelling so much in the 5 to 10 year projections. I really want to see what we can do if we concentrate and focus on what's in front of us. My goals, I think, for the year ahead, sustain for sure all the things that we do well. And to me, the core of that is the support we give students, the close interactions staff and faculty have with students here that I think for me has always been the most authentic part of my own academic experience at UMF. But there are certainly initiatives that are underway that I want to continue to see through. We're expanding into areas that we really have only dabbled in before, so whether it's in early college or continuing to develop more than dabbling in our graduate programming. Certainly an emphasis on internationalizing, kind of commitment to global perspectives here at UMF is something that I want to emphasize. We have and talked in the past year, certainly, about the idea of coming to UMF and seeing the world, and I really like that concept. It's one that resonates a lot with me, my own growing up in Maine, in rural Maine, in Dover-Foxcroft, and when I was 17, I got a chance to go to Africa for the summer. And actually, a strange footnote, I don't think President Foster is aware of this, but we were actually in South Africa at the same time doing very different things. And that experience for me was life-changing. And I think particularly at that time in one's life, it can be so transformative. So that's an emphasis of mine for sure. And then I think we have work to do here, when it comes to diversity and inclusion that is ongoing and needs a lot of attention in this coming year. So I expect that will see some lighting up too. And then if I project beyond that, which this line from Shakespeare keeps going through my head a lot over the last few weeks, the whirligig of time. I'm trying to get it kind of one day at a time, but if I do project back to Provost beyond this year, I think that it is in really continuing to reinvigorate our academic menu, and that can go in a lot of different directions. I think we can enhance a lot of what we're doing here. I see actually an opportunity to develop especially some additional graduate programs on the arts and sciences side as a kind of fundamental part of that. One of the reasons I majored in zoology is because when I was 13, my uncle said to me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a zoologist." And he said to me, "You're 13, you don't know what you want to do." And I thought from that moment on, I'm going to get a degree in zoology if it breaks me, which it almost did. So I took one graduate course in zoology, and it was the best zoology course I ever took, in fact. On polar ecology, I would have stuck with zoology maybe if every course had been like that. But I thought I could bring more of my interests in literature, or rather more of my interest in the sciences into literature than vice versa. And I think that is in fact borne out. I do a lot of work in animal studies, for instance, published a book about 10 years ago called Insect Poetics on insects in literature. And I do think it has given me a different perspective on liberal arts education. I tend not to believe in, I guess, the separation of state. I think that, of course, interdisciplinary work and integrated active learning is a core part of any liberal arts experience. For me, those boundaries are pretty seamless. I think that my experience, there's no separating out disciplines at all. Actually, I think in some ways is a kind of fabrication. So I do think that it has also helped me to see across the campus beyond my own discipline in English a little bit more clearly sometimes. Certainly that was the case in honors, and I did a lot of work in honors to build up, for instance, some of our pre-med majors and get a working group going there. So a lot of sympathy for the sciences and those who are trying to get through organic chemistry and all of that for sure. But I think mostly it has been about just seeing and believing in the way all of these different spheres, in fact, overlap and kind of dissolve into one another. I was really trying to get back to the state, and I came through UMF on an iconic fall day. The athletic fields were in play and the foliage was out, and I really didn't know a lot about UMF itself at that time, but I knew it was a beautiful location, beautiful campus, and the more I looked into it, I just, I hoped that it worked out. There aren't a lot of jobs in Shakespeare and Renaissance in the state of Maine, so I had to take the opportunity when it came, and I haven't looked back. I mean, I've enjoyed every bit of being here for those 15 years. I don't have any plans immediately to go anywhere else, so I think it was a combination of a lot of things, but a draw to home for me, for sure.